So for what it's worth, we just watched the how deep is the hole activity. If you want to, on the very back page of your lesson or something, you can say if time equals 11.9 seconds, and I'll tell you one more thing. The speed of sound is 343 meters per second. For a bonus challenge, see if you can figure out a way, taking into account the speed of sound, how deep that hole is. If we didn't take into account the speed of sound, it'd be easy. You got time, you just use D equals VI. VI is 0, we can assume that because it sure looked like it was dropped. But meanwhile, let's get to example 7. You made it. We're continuing on from last day, my friend. I like example 7, I like example 7, I like example 7. Example 7 is the next question. It says find the flight time and range. For any projectile question, once you have time, the question's going to fall apart. In fact, my joke is you're going to spend most of your time finding time. If they give it to you, you can, this question's going to be plug and chug. So we're launching horizontally from a cliff. If you give me a projectile question, in the same way that for forces my strategy was a free body diagram, in the same way that often for kinematics I used DFIC, for a projectile question I'm going to use something called a T-table. That's why it says hint T-table. And what do I mean by a T-table? A table that's in the shape of a letter T. And on one side I do horizontal. I usually represent that with an X for horizontal. On the other side, I do vertical. I usually represent that with a Y for vertical. And then I write down, I'm going to call these my two physics no-brainers. They're not really no-brainers. You have to have learned some physics, but we learned this last day. Read, what was AX as a number exactly? Alex, what was AY as a number exactly? I can write those two down without even reading the question. Those will be true. The rest I'm going to get from the question, and each time I get a piece of information, I'm going to ask myself, is this vertical or horizontal? And you'll notice that also means if it's a slanty piece of information, not going to use it. I'll have to break it into components. This 50, vertical or horizontal? Look at the picture, be obvious. Vertical. Why would it be, so I'm going to call it dy. Why would it be technically wrong to say dy equals 50? And your hint is one word, cliff. So, you're going to have to make this negative. It's a displacement, not a distance. And you are ending up below from where you started from. Is that okay, Alice? Good, good, good. What else do I know? That 20. Vertical, put it away completely, or horizontal. And meters per second, what is that? So I'm going to say Vx equals 20. And I check the units are good. Jan, how many things do I know in the X column? How many things do I know in the Y column? I need 3 to find the fourth. And so there's going to be the third piece of information, and that third piece, if it shows up in the horizontal column, then I'm going to solve for time horizontally, which is easier. If it shows up in the vertical column, I'm going to solve for time vertically, which can be a bit of a bear. What else do I know? What's VI for Y, or as I like to call it, VY initial? For a split second, look at the picture. Right when it leaves the cliff, for that tiniest split second, it has no vertical component. So we can say, we can only say that when we're launched horizontally from a cliff. Jan, which column do I have 3 things in now? Horizontal or vertical? Because I asked you to. Which column do I have 3 things in now? Horizontal or vertical? Very good. I'm going to find time. It says find the flight time and find the range. The range, by the way, is going to be the horizontal distance, dx. I'm going to find time vertically. I'll put a little part A here, and I'll say t equals question mark. Why didn't I put a letter y on the time if we're doing this vertically? Why didn't I do this? Don't write this down. So what about time? It's scalar. The reason I try and find time is that can go in either column, and then I will have three things to find the fourth in all columns. I'm looking for an equation that's got a T, an A, a D, and a V in it. There is one. Lily, which one, since you cleverly have your formula sheet out? Keep reading. Plus a half A. By far, the most common mistake is kids put a horizontal value into a vertical equation or a vertical value into a horizontal equation. For this one, they want VI to be 20. They want to put the 20 here because they desperately want to have an initial velocity. You do. It's 0. It's a lovely number. And so I'm going to write this, Lily. dy equals Vy initial t plus a half AY t squared. I'm going to put the y's there just to remind myself, don't put a horizontal value in here. Now, as a bonus, well, first of all, I would say this. What kind of an equation is this? It's a quadratic. How do you know? Because it's got a squared. Normally, we would have to solve this with the quadratic formula, and we will do ones like that. Those are the toughest ones. But because VI is 0, I actually get this. dy equals AY t squared over 2. That's how I'll write a half AT squared, because that's prettier. And although that's technically still a quadratic, you could solve that with a quadratic formula, I can get the t by itself. Lily, keep going. How would I get the t by itself? How will I move the a over? How will I move that 2 over? And then how do I get rid of a squared? I get t is going to be 2 times dy over ay square root. So I'm not going to bother quadratic formulating that one. And that's why I said this was the easiest one, because one of your velocities is 0. And Madison, you remember, anytime something is a 0, things are usually pretty nice. So it's going to be 2 times negative 50 divided by negative 9.8. Two times negative 50 divided by negative 9.8. Make sure you're following along on your calculator. And I get 3.19438, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be using this answer, so I'll report my answer to 3 sig figs, but I'll either store this on my calculator or somewhere off in the margin, I might jot it down to 3.1944, maybe to 5 sig figs. Generally, if I carry part data part way to 5 or 6 sig figs, my final answer will still be good to 3 sig figs. But I think I can just store this on my calculator. So I'm going to say 3.19 seconds. And you know where it says example 7, find the flight time? I'll put a little letter A above that, and I'll put a letter B above the range, just to be organized. And now I'm going to say B. The range is a horizontal distance. What it wants me to find is dx. Jan, how many things do I know in the horizontal column? Why is Jan wrong? Sorry? I now know 3. This is also, because it's a scalar, it's in both. So it's going to be up to you how you want to organize things. Because I can't fit my t-table on the same computer screen, I'm going to relist my data. I'm going to say V was equal, Vx was it 20? Ax was 0, and I have t equals 3.19 seconds. Although I'm going to use my answer button. I'm looking for an equation that's got a D, a V, an A, and a T in it. There is one. Keegan, which one? Same one. Yep. Same one, except with X's instead of Y's. Same one as we just used. So I'll jot it down. dx equals vxt plus a half axt squared. Keegan, what can I cross out completely here? More specific. And this whole thing, this, Keegan, is why last year I started trying to teach you to spot the zeros, because I knew those that were doing physics 12. By far the most common mistake, Nick, kids want to put the 9.8 there because it creeps them out. Well, there's no acceleration. Yes, there is. It's a number. What is the acceleration horizontally as a number exactly, Nick? 0. That's fine. Don't somehow think you got to put a 9.8 in there. No. Oh, and as a bonus, the quadratic term vanishes. This is by far the easiest one to work with. We get dx equals vxt. Pause. Look up. Everybody look up. Read YouTube. Supposing in this question, instead of me giving you the height of the cliff, a vertical displacement, what if I gave you the range? What if I gave you this? Could you find t from this? Even easier, it's not a quadratic at all. Time would just be divide the Vx over. So if you have horizontal data, that almost always makes the question much simpler. The vertical data, the half AT squared with the negative 9.8, you're going to have a squared at least kicking around, maybe even full bore quadratic. Anyways, this is just going to be straight plug and chug. Dx is going to be 20 times, I'm going to write 3.19, but you know I'm using my answer button. I didn't use my answer button. That was dumb of me. Wow, Mr. Dewick. You said you were going to use your answer button, and then, wow. So, let's see. Bring that back. Square root of that. I hit it twice. I can get back to that. There we go. So, 20 times, wow, did I botch that? Have to do extra work. Answer button. 63.9, yes? Units? It's a distance. In other words, I can tell you that this rock, that distance there is 63.9 meters. This height is 50. I can't tell you specifics yet about along the way, but I don't care. I will show you, we will deal with some of the slanty stuff, and you're going to see why I avoid it, because it's way more work. It means a lot of adding vectors tip to tail. Shouldn't be yawning. You should be, this is interesting, Mr. Dewick. On your test, there's going to be a cliff horizontally. I'll either give you the vertical displacement, find time, and you can find the range, or I'll give you the horizontal range, find time even easier, and you can find the height. Oh, and when you find the height, because you're finding a displacement, you will get a negative answer on your calculator, because your calculator will be telling you, think you ended up below from where you started, which you did. What happened to example 8? I moved it to a different lesson. Example 9. I like example 9. I like example 9. Example 9 is a nice question. Okay. We're launching it from the ground at an angle. Did I say angle? We're launching it from the ground at an angle. Did I say angle? Okay. I'm going to break this up into its components. And because they gave me a nice big picture, I think I'm going to do that right here. So I'm going to go d. There's Vx, d. There's Vy initial. How come I put an initial on the Vy, but I didn't put an initial on the Vx? Read, what's Ax? This won't ever change. This one will. At any chance I can to remind myself to pay attention to the T-table, to the horizontal and vertical components. Don't put a horizontal into a vertical. Don't put a vertical into a horizontal. Let's see. Color. Hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. Mallory, what do you want to find first? Vertical or horizontal? I don't care. Pick. So, O and H, which trig function? Yep. You'll notice I haven't even started the question yet. I'm not going to worry about time to top or total. First, you give me an angle, components. That's just do that first. So it's going to be sine, what always goes next to the trig function, the angle, equals Vy initial over 100. Vy initial equals 100 sine 35. I know I'm going to be using this, so I'll try and carry some extra sig figs. I wouldn't round this off to 57.4. I'll go, I don't know, 57.3576. Mallory, Vx, which trig function? Cos. Of course it is. Cos 35 equals Vx over 100. Vx. Again, I think I can just backspace and edit. One more. There we go. Cos. And I get 81 point... Oh, there's a 0 there. How about 81.9152? That's a good place to round off. Okay. Now I'm ready to start answering the question. What's the hint I gave you? T-table for a projectile. I'm going to do that, I think, right here. Yoink, yoink, horizontal, vertical. What are my two physics no-brainers that I can write without even reading the rest of the question? Equals. AY equals. The only exception would be if I put you on a different planet. I'm not going to, but I should at least as a nerd point out, hey, if you notice you're on the moon, don't use negative 9.8. Oh, I can also say Vy initial. That's 57.3576. And I can say Vx. That's 81.9152. Jan, how many things do I know in the horizontal column? How many in the vertical column? Uh-oh. Because I need 3 things to find the 4th. What do they want me to find? What's the first thing they're asking me to find? Time to where? Time to where? Yeah? Say that again. I think you said it right. VFI is 0. V final initial is 0. I don't think V final... You didn't say it right. Okay. Vertically, at the top for a split second, how fast are you traveling? Are you still traveling horizontally? Yeah, you're still moving horizontally. This is why we're breaking it up into components. But I can tell you at the top. So now I'm going to make a little note here. T top equals question mark. I can say Vy final is 0. You might want your formula sheet out by now, unless you've got all these memorized. And some of you might, because we flogged these to death last year. Because now I'm looking for an equation that's got a Vf, a T, an A, and a Vi. And there is one. Nick, which one? That's my way of saying, I don't think you have your formula sheet out, so I figure if I call on you, you'll finally make the effort and you'll get a oh, you have Keegan's right there. Okay. Remember, don't write on the yellow one. Oh, boy, you're going to Keegan for help? You could do better. Okay, maybe not. Yeah. Which one has a VF, a VI, an A, and a T? Yep. I'm going to put the Y's in there. Let's start with that. You're absolutely right. It's this one. VF equals VI plus AT. But, Nick, vertical. And you can see how tempting it would be for a student to say, Mr. Dewick, isn't the initial velocity 100? Because that's what it started out as. No, that's a slanty. We're never going to use that one. Blech. We have to put stuff into proper components. Oh, and absolutely, if this was multiple choice, one of the answers would be if you use the 100 as your V initial. Keep going, Nick. Get the T by itself. So let's see. There's the T. I know for you it was first semester, so we'll brush off the cobwebs. What's going to drop down like a domino? The left-hand side, yes? Let's do that. I usually put the component and then the final instead of the final and then the component, but either is fine. How will I move the A over? How will I move the VI over? And remember, it's reverse BEDMAS, so minus V initial. I was inconsistent, Mr. Dewick. Let's put the Y and then the initial, and then divide by. That's going to be time to top. In brackets, 0 minus, what was VY? 57.3576, close bracket, divided by negative 9.8. Do you get 5.8528 and change? Yeah. Is that okay, Sarah? Okay. Sarah, what's part B you want me to find? Total flight time. I think total flight time is going to be bonk. There's two ways to get this. So I'm actually going to draw a little line like this, and for part B, I'm going to draw a little line in the middle of the page. Sarah, can you think of one way that I could find total flight time? Okay, you ready? This is the easy way, but only because we've done some work already. Look up, look up, look up, look up. We just found time to top. We would like to find total flight time. What's a clever way that I could find total flight time? Y'all see it? What? Quinn.
Multiply by 2.
Multiply what by 2?
Top.
Which time?
To top.
Thank you. I got to be really fussy because kids just sometimes will multiply any time by 2. No, but because we're starting on the ground and ending on the ground, and that's only why this works. This does not work if there's a cliff involved. But if we're starting and ending on the ground, it's symmetrical. So one method would be take my answer from A times 2. Time top times 2. And I'm going to use my answer button because it's sitting right there, times 2. And I have no problem if you do it this way. And in fact, I would do it this way if I had figured out the time to top already. 11.7056. I'm going to write the whole thing. 11.7056 and change, which is 11.7 seconds. What if I hadn't found the time to top? Well, you could find the time to top, let V final be 0, and then just double it. And if you choose to do that, I have no problem. But I'm lazy. If I can avoid finding something in order to find something, if I can get there in one step instead of 2 steps, I will. And you can. You could also go like this. T total equals question mark. What was VY initial? I've scrolled down. 57.3576. And AY was negative 9.8. Believe it or not, I also know VY final when we hit the ground. Quinn, what is it not equal to when we hit the ground? Okay. By the way, of course it's not, because it was 0 at the top for a split second. What's VY final equal to? Yeah. Negative 57.3576. And now I can use the same equation that Nick brought us about 2 minutes ago. Nick, do I know VY final? Yep. Do I know VY initial? Yep. Do I know AY? Yep. I can find time exactly from this. And if I do that, it would be T total equals negative 57.3576 minus 57.357, whoop, typing it wrong, 3576 divided by negative 9.8. Can you type that into your calculator? Do you also get 11.7056? And it might be a bit different on the 5th or 6th decimal place, but I'm willing to bet we match the first 4 or 5. Maybe more. Negative 57.3576 minus 57.3576. Close off the top, divided by negative 9.8. Look at that. So, Lena, either of those methods totally acceptable. I'm lazy. If I didn't know time top, I would use the right-hand method just to get there in one step. But I know a lot of students, they like that 0 because it just makes the math a little nicer, and then times by 2. Most common mistake. Kids forget to multiply their answer by 2. I say, find the total flight time, and they say, like Quinn said a couple of days ago, well, VY final is 0. It's not for the total flight time, and so they only find half the flight time. Don't do that. We haven't got much room left, but we got a little bit of room. There's a part C, I think, Mallory, in there? I picked on you already. Madison, over here. What's part C? You'll be fine. What's part C? Is range horizontal or vertical? So you know what? Let's go like this. C wants me to find dx. What was AX, Mallory? Madison? Look at your T-table. It's all there. Yep. What was VX? What? 9152. That's 2 things. I need 3 things. What can also go in the horizontal column? Which one? Total time. Madison, I'm looking for an equation that's got a D, an A, a B, and a T in it. There is one. You're going to find we're using that one an awful lot. Oh, and by the way, what was A? You know what? It turns into this one again, doesn't it? So if you want to, you can go straight to dx equals vxt. It's going to be 81.9152 times answer button. It's going to be fairly big because 100 meters per second, that's pretty fast. This is going to end up a long ways down, probably, I'm guessing, around a kilometer-ish. There you go, just shy of a kilometer. 959 meters. Is that right, folks? Yep. That's most of what I can ask for launching a projectile from the ground at an angle. So we have horizontally from a cliff. We have ground at an angle. What's your homework? So you'll probably need to do these on a separate piece of paper. I would encourage you, when in doubt, DOLP. Don't be scared to redraw the little cliff picture. I did kind of a template here. You can certainly try all of number 1. All of number 2. 3 is good. 4 is good. 5 is good. 6 is good. 4, 5, and 6 are conceptual questions. Just look at the picture and see which one looks good. 7 I haven't completely talked about. 7a is asking you to find the maximum height. Height, do you think that's horizontal or vertical? It's asking you to find a dy. Make a t-table. Be very, very careful. It's launched at an angle. Did I say angle? Nick, it's going to be components. And you should have enough that you can find the maximum height, and then you can find it's also total time of flight. That'll work. 8 is good. 9 is good. 10 is good. And then if you wanting to from the ultimate review, you can also, you're capable, those are questions that have projectiles that are either launched horizontally from a cliff or from the ground at an angle. Okay? I'm going to give you a chance. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're looking at. If you wrap your brain around this, then tomorrow when we do cliff at an angle, hopefully it'll make sense. All right?